Good day, everyone. This is the second module in a training course of 7 modules on the control and mitigating of fall armyworm in Africa on the continent. This is the second module that we will be dealing with today. My name is Marius Boshoff. I am the Marketing Director with Villa Crop Protection in collaboration with AGRA and Venture 37. We do hope that these modules will be used successfully by trainers in the field who are aiming to train small-scale farmers and farmers on the continent to assist them in controlling this devastating pest. This module, Module 2, will specifically deal with the biology and the identification of fall armyworm. And we would like to introduce you to one of our consultants, Professor Johnny van der Berg. Professor Johnny van der Berg is professor at the University of the Northwest in South Africa, and he specializes in integrated pest management and has been part of the fall armyworm team for quite a while now. I do hope that you will enjoy this session. Professor Johnny, over to you.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to Module 2 on fall armyworm biology and identification. And I hope you learn things today to convey to farmers in terms of these topics. The key messages that I want to convey to you today are the following. And we're dealing with specific subtopics. First, we're going to do the biology and life cycle of fall armyworm, then identification characteristics, identification of damage symptoms, and then I want to put this all into context and say why is it important to be able to identify damage and the larva itself and know its biology, because it leads to improved risk assessment and decision making. So you as a trainer of farmers must be able to convey to farmers the importance of what I'm going to tell you. It is important that farmers are able to correctly identify pests and symptoms, because that is how they will know if the pest is present in the fields. It helps with scouting to determine how serious the infestation is, and then of course this information is used in decision making. Ultimately, the farmer must decide, does he want to spray or does she not want to apply a pesticide? And that's why today's lecture on biology and identification is important. So you as a trainer can ask the farmers, do you know how to identify? And if they say yes, don't just leave it there. Ask them, why do you say so? How do you know? Do you know the biology of fall army? And I'd like to show you this animation that deals with identification of fall armyworm, about its biology, and then also it ends, and please note that it ends with a farmer thinking on what to do next.
Hi Mary, your maize looks beautiful. How long ago did you plant it?
I planted it 4 weeks ago. The plants will flower in about another 4 weeks, and then the cobs will develop.
But why do you look so worried?
When I was here 4 days ago, the plants looked healthy. But if you look closely now, you can see holes in the leaves.
Why do you think it is?
I don't know, but I've recently heard other farmers talk about fall armyworm pests of maize. Maybe it's fall armyworm?
Let's ask Joe. He's an extension worker and he may know what this is. Hello Joe, do you know what caused these holes in the leaves of this maize plant?
Let me have a look. Oh, this is a larva of the fall armyworm and it is eating holes into the maize leaves.
How do you know it's fall armyworm and not some other pest?
If you look carefully, you can see an upside-down Y on the head of the larva. There are also 4 very dark spots arranged in a square pattern on the last segment of the larva, which is typical of the fall armyworm.
Some of these larvae are small and I can't see those things clearly.
You are right. They are difficult to see. That's why it's important to look at the type of damage it makes to the leaves.
You're so clever. What do you mean?
Because the small worms eat deep inside the whorl of the plant and you can't see them. But as the plant grows and the leaves come out, you can see small round holes and round lesions where the small larvae only scrape the leaf surface. Because the larva gets bigger and stronger as time passes, the holes they eat into the leaves also get bigger. Another sign that it's a full armyworm larva that's present in the plant world is the presence of frass in the whorl or surrounding area. Other pests of maize don't produce so much frass.
But where do these holes in the leaves come from? They weren't here a few days ago.
The moths of fall armyworm fly around at night, and after mating they lay their eggs on maize plants. Small larvae come out of these eggs and they walk into the whorl of the maize plant. These small larvae feed deep inside the whorl of the plant for about 7 days, and then they start to grow very quickly into large larvae that eats these big holes into the leaves. That's when you see them very easily. Small larvae eat small holes into the leaves, and big larvae eat big holes into the leaves.
Aish, so how long does a larva live and feed on the maize plant?
If the weather is warm, a larva will feed for about 14 days, and then it climbs off the plant and goes into the soil. There it changes into pupa, and after about 10 days a moth comes out of the pupa it makes and lays eggs on other maize plants.
Will I harvest any cobs from the plants if they have leaf damage?
Yes, you will. Not all the plants in the field are damaged, and most of the plants are healthy and strong enough to tolerate leaf damage. If only a few plants are damaged, you still have a harvest of a lot of maize. But if many plants are damaged and their leaves show a lot of big holes, the harvest may be low. If the plants are younger than 3 weeks old, they can be totally destroyed if the moths lay eggs on many of the plants in the field. If the eggs are laid on plants just when they flower, the worms will climb onto the cobs and may cause damage to the cobs. If many plants show damage, using an insecticide may be a way to protect the plants against further damage.
How did this pest get into my field?
The fall armyworm is a pest that can migrate very far. The moths fly to your farming region from other regions where the conditions for their survival are very good, where the temperatures are always high and there are always food plants available during the year.
Will it infest my maize fields again next year?
We don't know, it's difficult to predict. There are some parts of the country where the pest has established permanently. In these areas, the climate is warm and there are always maize and other host plants available for the pest larvae to feed on. In those areas, farmers suffer a lot because the pest is always present in the field. And during the warm and rainy season, moths fly from these regions where they can survive during the winter to areas far away, and that's how they came to your maize fields. The pest does not like cold climates and can't survive in regions where it becomes cold at night.
Will this pest also infest the other crops? The pumpkins, tomatoes and beans are growing very well this season.
No, it will not attack those crops. It is very rare that other crops are infested. In Africa, this pest infests nearly only maize and grain sorghum.
Thank you, Joe. Now we know more about fall armyworm. And we also do not have to be scared that it'll also attack other crops than maize.
Thank you, Joe. I'll now walk through my fields to see how many plants have been damaged by fall armyworm before I decide what to do.
Great. I will come back tomorrow and show you how to scout your fields for fall armyworm damage.
So you now watched the whole video about the biology and identification. And the things I'm going to highlight now is important to explain to farmers. And it's important that they realize and understand the life cycle of this pest, because they don't often realize or understand the link between moths and eggs, and suddenly there are large larvae present in the fields. And they often do not understand the relationship between the size of the larvae, which I consider very important, and the time of attack and maize plant development. So this is all what we're going to address in terms of biology. So I'd like to start off with the life cycle, and this is something that you can explain to farmers because they don't always link this. So we can tell the farmers that the moths are always active at nighttime. which is also shown in the video. The moths lay their eggs, the eggs hatch, and from that you get different larval stages and pupa, which is in the soil, and then we get the moths again. So this is the cycle, and the cycle can take 14 to 20 days depending on temperature. And I'd now like to go into each of these a little bit more in detail so that you yourself understand the biology better. So the moths are active at night and they mate during the evenings. And here you can see the female and the male moth. So after mating, the moth lays an egg anywhere on the plant. It's not necessarily underneath leaves or on top of leaves, anywhere on the plant. And once your eyes get used to this, you can easily spot it. And I strongly recommend that you as a trainer get some eggs somewhere when you travel and show that to farmers when you are talking to them. Once your eyes get used to it, you can see on this picture on the right hand side, there's an egg batch on that plant and also on the other plant. So those are the egg batches, and when the eggs hatch, we see hundreds of larvae migrating on the plant. And this very short video will explain to you how they migrate, and we are suddenly, I think it's a state of shock when we see these hundreds of larvae moving, but they are cannibalistic, and you will see some larvae in the video eating each other already at this stage when they're only a few minutes old. So this video shows that very clearly.
Some hatching, some still to hatch, some had hatched like 2 days before.
2 days before that.
Yeah. So you can see that same plant never rested.
Yeah.
It's always on attack.
So after those larvae migrate to the whorl of the plant, and then they start feeding there, and then they go through 6 different stages. The newly hatched larvae are very small and we hardly see them if we don't pay detailed attention. But they go from the first stage to the large larvae, which we are all familiar with, in a matter of 14 to 20 days. And they develop through these stages. And then the larva climbs off the plant and the pupa forms inside the soil. Here's a fall armyworm pupa 2 or 3 centimeters below soil level or in the plant debris. And then when the pupal stage is completed, the moths come out again and they continue the cycle. So it's important that farmers understand this cycle, because if maize is grown in highland regions where it is cool at night time, the next infestation may only take place next year. But if, for example, it's in a tropical low-lying area, the infestation may be directly onto the same plants or on a neighboring field. And that reinfestation is, of course, much more serious there. So it's important to see biology in context with the whole cropping system. For example, if larvae grows big and they leave the plant to go into the soil, they won't be present there anymore. And this type of typically old damage symptoms that we see here indicates that the larvae are not in the plants anymore and nothing can be done to the problem anymore. So it's important to understand the biology, and that is the message that you should convey to farmers, because it will help in decision making. And I want to come back to the egg batches. We have egg batches, and if you look carefully on this plant, there on the plant on the right hand side, we can see small damaged lesions, which was eaten by young and small larvae. This is what farmers usually see. Large larvae, they are nearly ready to pupate, and control will not be effective anymore. That's why it's important to understand the biology. An important question that you could ask farmers is, if there are so many larvae on a plant, why do we usually end up with only 1 or 2 big larvae? This is because the larvae are cannibalistic. They eat each other. And this very short video that is going to play now will show you how a big fall armyworm larvae is devouring probably its brother or sister. So that is why we find only one larvae per plant about 2 weeks after they have hatched. And of course, this works in favor of the farmer. To end of the biology section of this module, fall armyworm is a tropical species, meaning it likes hot and humid conditions, and populations do not persist in cool areas. Infestations that we get in cool areas with cold winters, in the infestations we get in the following season, is due to invading populations. So in this map, and depending on where you are when you look at this presentation, it shows that the regions colored in red, orange, and yellow are the regions which is suitable for fall armyworm to establish. So in these parts of Angola and Zambia and the highlands of Zimbabwe and Western Kenya, for example, you can with accuracy predict that there will be annual invasions, but that the pest will not always be there. And that is something that you can discuss with farmers when you give training or interact with them. For example, you can ask them, have they seen fall armyworm in the fields? Are they there every season? Do they think there's reinfestation all the time? And have they observed the egg batches which I showed you, and what do they do with them? Because just squeezing and killing an egg batch will also contribute to controlling the pest a little bit. So these are discussion prompts which you can use when you talk to farmers. So we're now going to deal with the identification of larvae, and this is very basic and relatively easy on large larvae. To identify the larvae, you have to look for 4 dark spots on the large larvae on its last segments, and an inverted Y, white colored Y on the forehead. And on the right-hand picture, you can see it easily, 4 dark spots and this white Y on the head. So it's easy to observe these characteristics on large larvae, but it's really difficult and near impossible without a hand lens to do it on smaller larvae. So this is what we usually get and what farmers usually see, but it's not easy on small larvae. And for that reason, it is important to also look at damage symptom identification, because this type of damage symptom going together with the larvae is what confirms that you've got fall armyworm in the field. So this is typically the type of damage that farmers observe for the first time. So if young plants are attacked, we see leaf damage like this, which can only be a fall armyworm type of damage, because stem borers don't do this type of big holes inside in leaves. If plants are attacked close to tasseling and after flowering, we get cob damage, which is caused by fall armyworm larvae that feed on the ears. So that is why it's important to see larval biology in the context of plant biology and in terms of the symptoms, because when the larvae are still small, we must use symptoms to confirm the type of identification or the presence of the larvae in the field. And here again, this is normally the view that all of you are used to. There you can see the 4 dark spots on the back side of the larva. But what I think is extremely important, and this is the message that you as a trainer should convey, is that farmers should learn how to identify the first signs of damage. There again, and I'm using the same photo, on the left-hand side you can see an egg batch, on the other plant as well. And this damage symptoms that you see here is 3 to 4 day old damage. Now, why is that important? And the answer is straightforward and simple. This is the time when chemical control should be applied, or any control measure for that matter, because once the larva is 7 or 8 days old, control measures are not effective anymore. So farmers need to be able to identify wilt damage at a very early stage. So there's a strong relationship between larval size and the type of damage it causes. And this progression or succession in damage is something that you can try to explain to farmers and train them. And this drawing on the left-hand side shows you that larvae L1 and 2 stage larvae, they are the very small ones we can't see very easily. They are deep in the whorl. We don't even see the damage symptoms really. They cause these small holes in the leaves. And as they grow, and remember this is a period of 14 days, from left to right, they cause these huge holes in the leaves. And I took this photo over several days. If you look at this one, you can see small holes in the leaves, pinholes. These larvae were 24 hours old when they made these damage symptoms. And 2 to 4 day old larvae cause this type of symptoms, and then 7 day old larvae causes this type of symptoms. And once you start seeing these symptoms, now you're approaching larval development at the rate that you won't be able to control them if you haven't done something yet. So that is important to know that small larvae make small holes and big larvae make large holes. So that also explains to you the timeline that farmers need to know and when they need to apply control measures. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm sure most of you realize that depending on plant age, the larval damage and outcome in terms of yield differs. So fall armyworm prefers to attack young plants that are still soft and growing nicely, but early infestation results in whorl damage, and late infestation results in ear damage or cob damage because the larvae can't feed in the whorl anymore and they have to climb out and start feeding on the ears, and that is why we get cob damage with late infestations. So the type of thing that you as a trainer can ask the farmers is, how do you identify fall armyworm larvae? Have you seen cob damage in your field? Because from experience we know that farmers observe a lot more whorl damage than that actually realizes in cob damage later on. Which damage is most common so that they can start thinking about this. And very important, and this is one of the main messages I think, farmers should know that it's important to identify symptoms at an early stage, which give them time to intervene. So that takes care of our module number 2 on biology and identification. And there are several other modules to follow. You don't have to discuss this with the farmers, but please mention it to them. Other modules about scouting, about economic thresholds and the responsible use of pesticides. And that is all based on good understanding of biology and identification of damage symptoms. So thank you very much. I hope you learned a lot from this presentation and that you can convey these messages to farmers.